hello everybody. I'm currently waiting for the rest of my witches to show up. It's actually been a very busy day for everybody, so as soon as they show up, we're actually gonna start. It's funny how I'm actually used to flying solo, but it's weird when you're actually waiting for everybody else and you're like, huh, what do I gotta do again? But it's cool. Whew, man, how is everybody? Because it's been a week, seriously. Yeah, it's been kind of incredible and also super tiring. But let's see. Today we're going to be talking about motivation, and especially with NaNoWriMo coming up on Sunday. Like, wow, I can't believe it's already almost here with us. But we're going to be talking about motivation and what it actually takes for us to basically start writing and keep writing. I think that's actually something that is kind of hard for a lot of people. We're probably going to talk a little bit about our different experiences with it. I know that for me, since we talked about this before, since I have been doing this for 10 years, and this is going to be my 10th year, I had to find different ways to keep motivated. And it was really, really hard at first. I had to actually come up with a couple of different techniques. And funny how whatever worked for me a couple of years ago doesn't actually work for me now. And I actually just finished reading a couple of books that talk about different ways that they do their motivation. So this is going to be really interesting. I'm excited to hear what my fellow witches are actually, well, what they do as well. Usually when I'm doing Twitch, we do have a little wait time. So I am going to wait a little bit and see if they show up. And apparently we just have one. So welcome, Anna.
Hey.
Hey.
I'm like just running off from work, which means like closing one computer and getting on another.
Don't worry. I know that Sarah is also like just getting back. So it's cool. I was just doing a mini introduction with us.
Okay.
And if you need some time, like I usually, for streams, I usually do like a little like 5-minute thing. Okay. I just don't have it here on like StreamYard. I kind of wish I did, but I don't even think they allow you to take like that long of a time. And I'm like, damn. It's nice to give people some time to actually like get here and stuff.
Mm-hmm. Do we have anybody yet?
Yeah, we do.
Oh, nice.
No comments yet, but it's going to be fun. Cool. So I know that I'm going to have to repeat this once Sarah actually gets here.
We can wait. I don't mind waiting.
Well, it's kind of nice though, because like sometimes it's hard to know when people are coming in or not. Mm-hmm. So it's also kind of good to, oh, there we go. Hi, Lisa. Mm-hmm. Thanks for being here with us. But yeah, that's why it's kind of good to like re-explain it anyway. And plus, like the first 5 minutes are just kind of chill.
Yeah. Awesome.
But how are you? How was work?
I'm better. I'm glad I'm here. This is better.
This is better? Okay, that's good to know. Also, I love your new background. Oh,
thanks. So, in the last one I talked about like people not saying my space at work, this was part of that. Over, like 9 months, I finally was just like, I don't even care. As long as everyone's clean, I'm good. But this time I was like, I'll put it up, see if it works. So if it falls behind me,
see, I actually love that. Like, I'm not gonna hex you or anything like that. But if it fell, it would be so funny. It's just like...
Yeah. I finally gave up on it. I was in a work meeting and like we were working with this provider because I work in healthcare, and trying to convince him to like get on board with a project, and my screen fell, and it was just like, I'm just gonna like,
oh no,
guard for a minute and try to figure it out. So.
See, I mean, like the first day that we did this, the three of us. Mm-hmm. And with you coming in late and then like everything that we were just doing, I was just like, I hope that nobody notices that I didn't kind of finish the art on the background. And then like when stuff happened, I was like, oh, oops. Yeah. So
it makes it real. It makes it real.
well, it also actually absolutely goes with, our theme. It's for prepping. So maybe in November we'll be a little bit better.
Right? Like make your space yours. I'm like adjusting my camera, and also like hopefully you can't see, all the other things happening in the room.
No, you're fine. You're fine. Okay, so as we wait for Sarah, I'm going to ask a couple of questions because it's nice to get started a little bit. But so today we are going to talk about motivation and different ways that you can do to keep motivated or even to get motivated. I think that last time when we talked about prep and when we talked about, like our own stories and everything else like that, like it was a good start for people who maybe are just getting to know NaNoWriMo or different things like that. But like, what about people who already write, even if they write a little bit, even if it isn't like something that they do all the time? I think it's a big problem for a lot of people to actually find a motivation to be like, oh, I wrote once. That's enough.
Yeah.
So, Sarah is here.
Awesome.
And so it's a good thing to start thinking about. So start thinking about that. Sorry for the noise. And welcome, Sarah.
Hello.
I'm actually going to order us. I like how I can just switch the two of us and it's like, ta-da. Okay, now I'm going to switch to my half-finished like background.
Thing.
There we go. Now it's pretty.
Yay.
I need to figure out my lighting eventually.
How are you, Sarah? How was work and getting back from work?
Oh my gosh. It was fine. I was rushing. I'm sorry I don't look cute, but
I love your I'm forgetting words today. I've been up since like 8 a.m. Yes, that's
cute. Yes, I agree with you.
So flattering.
Also, the color totally fits. I love it. It's perfect. Lisa's also saying that your sweater is super cute and dope.
Thank you.
Actually, she said super duper. Please ignore me today. I've been up since 8, and this is actually my second stream today. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's been interesting. Well, it's okay. We can start a little bit late. So now that Sarah is here, I'm going to do the intro one more time, but it's going to be a lot shorter this time. So today we're going to be talking about motivation. What do you do to get motivated, to stay motivated? We're going to talk a little bit about the differences between if you already are a writer and you don't have that, that routine. So how do you get into a routine, like what you got to do? And it's going to be kind of cool to talk about the different ways that we do it. I did mention before you guys got here that basically, since I've been doing this for 10 years, what used to work for me a couple of years ago doesn't really work now. And so how do you keep that going? Like, how do you change it? How do you find different ways? And so since that's like the third time I repeated that, let's start and let's switch things up a little bit. Anna, since I already mentioned it to you before, maybe you already had some time to think about it. So take it away.
So how do I stay motivated? I think it's hard, honestly. Trying to juggle multiple jobs, full-time, all those things, it gets really hard. It's like trying to find, where do I carve out that space? And then sticking with the story. I know we talked about music in our chat earlier, and I think we're going to talk about that a little bit more today. But it is finding the motivation, sticking with it. And it really comes down to some self-care things for me, I think. Taking walks or just being outside is super helpful. When I'm stuck and I'm staring at my screen, and I've been staring at my screen forever and ever and ever, and nothing's happening, or I hate the things that I am producing, which happens also, right? It's just time to step away and give myself that space. And then it keeps it fresh so that I can come back and get back to it. I think one of the hardest things this year is allowing myself to set the things aside for longer than I'm really comfortable with. And also trying not to get in that like, oh, I'm a terrible person. My poor little orphan manuscripts are just sitting over there in Scrivener all by themselves, you know, like poor, they're like starving little children. So giving myself just that permission to, it's okay, it's hard right now. And I think Twitter, the writing community and Twitter has been really good for that because people like, it's been hard to find the motivation this year. So just, yeah, giving myself that permission and then coming back to it. I think it's, again, like the abandoned children, they're always kind of in your mind. You always know they're there, and that they'll be there when you come back to them. So I don't think that answered the question, but that, I guess, is just kind of where I am, the space that I am right now as a writer in 2020. Oh.
Sorry, got disconnected.
It's okay. But it's cool. Like we were mentioning it before you got here. It's like, it's totally okay that during the prep month, we're actually like a little bit all over the place. Mm-hmm. It's actually kind of fun to be like, oh, let's switch. Let's do this. Let's do that a little bit. But yeah, no, that's actually really cool. I mean, we're going to get to it. It's always going to come up. But this year, this freaking year, I think when we started out with the motivation topic and, you know, like a lot of people ask about burning out, things like that. It's so hard because we're also trying to separate these topics, but then we always come back to like what this year is and what it's actually doing to us, right? So yeah, it's interesting to talk about that. Sarah, do you want to go ahead and talk about motivation? And
yeah, sorry I missed part of Anna's, but yeah, I touched on this on Sunday, so I might repeat myself a bit, but I think music is definitely a good way to like get into the vibe, especially for one of my books. I have this set YouTube playlist that I'll listen to. I can't really listen to a lot of music with lyrics, but I like some of those compilations on YouTube that are like epic fantasy chill music. So those help me. And then lighting the candle, like I said before. Another thing that's been really helpful for me, especially during all of this 2020 craziness, is talking to writing friends. I have one critique partner who I talk to a lot and who is very familiar with my story and is the type of person that when I feel low can just tell me, you know, like hype me up a ton. So that really helps, like when you get into the slump, to just have even one person who is into your story or even your idea if they haven't read your story. Like I love when you guys and Katie tell me about your stories and I just want to read them so badly. So having that energy can really help me get back into the mindset of like, okay, well, I need to write this for this other person too, not just for me. So that helps.
Yeah. And we mentioned it before, we do have our writing group and we have a personal one where it's, you know, just us, but then we also have one that's open to other people. And it's interesting because you get completely different energies coming from, you know, these two, but it doesn't mean that the one where, you know, like it's open to other people, it's not as energetic as it can be when it is just like personal friends. We have been cheering each other. We have been talking about different things. And when we're actually trying to find what topics we should talk about, you know, we actually had people going like, oh, you guys should talk about this. You should talk about that. And so very, very different energies, but it can be a stranger. It can still help. It's definitely a way to keep motivate. Yeah. But I'm going to be all over the place today.
Well, and I think writing sprints are great too. That's something that I really discovered especially through NaNoWriMo. And I think a lot of writers get this idea in their head that the writing sprint needs to be writing as many words as possible in a short period of time. But for me, it's really just taking 30 minutes or however long to put away distractions and write. And then you also have the accountability of whoever you're doing that sprint with. And so that's helped me a lot because it can be so easy to get distracted and just kind of blow through my writing time with distractions. Whereas that, at least I just have to write something and that something will eventually turn into something else. So those have been really helpful for me as well.
Yeah. And it's actually funny that you mentioned that, because I've been a lone writer out of like the 10 years. And I'm sorry, I keep mentioning the 10 years, but I think out of all of them, I've only written with other people, like for real, like having a group and having more people that are writers who have read some of the stuff that I wrote, things like that. I think it's for the past like 3 years. It's been very, very short. And I remember that in 2017, when like we did the Big Sur, um, I don't remember now if it was before, if it was after. I think it was before. I did the Night of Writing Dangerously, which is an event that Nano used to put on once a year to celebrate Nano. And I just remember that, like, being in a room full of writers, and this was like, there were a lot of people there. Like, I don't even remember the number, but it's a huge ballroom with a lot of people. And we were actually doing, because part of, what you got to do in there is doing sprints. And when you have a table with like 10 people around you and they're all doing sprints at the same time, and it's the first time that you see other writers next to you doing it too, you see that some people are just like actually sprinting and other people are just like, oh, hey, so how are you? And it becomes like, oh, okay, so I don't have to actually kill myself doing this sprint and trying to get 1,000 words out of 5 minutes. It's okay for me to do my own thing, because maybe talking to this person next to me is actually going to give me the energy that I need to be able to write later. And I'm going to be very, very honest about this. I barely got any writing done at that event. But I had the time of my life actually talking to people. And after that, one another nano. So that's one way to put it, right? But yeah, okay. So we did talk a little bit about motivation, about like the things that we do, things that we have to set up. Let's talk about music a little bit, because I think that's actually like a really big topic that we can expand upon a little bit. Like Sarah mentioned, I actually can't do lyrics, but, and here's a weird one, I found out that I can do lyrics if they're in another language. I didn't think that would be a thing, because I thought that the noise of someone speaking would be, bad in whatever language it is, but I can kind of do it. So it's an interesting thing. So do you guys want to talk a little bit about what music you like to listen to? If there's a couple of titles that you want to share, and also if anybody who's watching, if you guys have any music that you like to listen to while you're writing or doing whatever it is that you do creative, please share with us. You guys can choose who goes.
Anna, you're welcome to go if you have ideas. Okay. Well, something for me is there's music that I listen to while I'm writing, but I also have music that reminds me of my stories that I'll listen to get into the headspace, or if I need to brainstorm or whatever it is. So that music can have plenty of lyrics because it's just songs that make me think of the books. So for example, for specific ones, with the manuscript I'm trying to query right now, there's a song by Mystery Skulls called Ghost. That's Frozen 2 soundtrack. True. Ghost by Mystery Skulls is just super fun and instantly makes me think of my book. And then I also love Mr. Blue Sky is like my ultimate feel-good song. So those can help me get in the mood. And then, like I already said, I often listen to YouTube videos. Like I was writing about a bard last week, and so I just found all these random videos of people playing the lute on YouTube and listened to that. So
my turn. I saw that eyebrow. I was like, I think that's the pass. I really like that idea of like there are songs that make me think of the manuscript, and then there's music that I listen to while I'm writing. I think for me, I don't have a problem with lyrics. At least when I'm writing, I'm trying to think now. I'm like, what does it take? Sometimes it doesn't take anything. Sometimes it's just the headphones on my head. but a lot of what I end up being drawn to for the YA story that I'm writing is a lot of just really hardcore, femme rock, I guess. And the one song that just kind of propelled the story to a different level was first time I heard Halsey's Castle. And it was just this moment of like, oh, that's my girl. There she is. That's her. And so there's songs that kind of do that. Aurora is another one that will do that. And there's just these like epic female driven, female lead bands. And these songs are just, we're racing, we're doing a thing, screw the people who tell us we can't do it. And it's like, I'll write these crazy fight scenes, or they're, now they're on a journey. And that's where these songs a lot of times will come in. What I have to be careful about those, a lot of times when I'm writing and I don't know what I need my characters to do, I make them fight. So they'll fight with each other, they'll fight with other people, whatever. So there's a lot of fighting that goes on. It's like, ooh, that's kind of, what does that say about us, me? But that's kind of what I'm drawn to. The yeahs, things like that, where it's just these women just really going after this music and this thing that they're trying to say. I think those are probably my big three right now.
Have you ever listened to Ruelle?
Yes, I like that one a lot. Yeah.
There was a span of time, I think this was like right around my first nano, where I would just walk around outside listening to Ruelle and feeling angsty about my story.
Mm-hmm. The metrics
vibe.
Pandora is, it kind of gets the blood going too. Like writing and running the same soundtrack.
Oh man, that's cool. I think I actually have a little bit of a different, I don't know, like maybe it's a little different for me with music, but you know how sometimes you have to have like that soundtrack that you listen to so you can do not sports. I keep saying sports, but it's like, I don't care about sports, but do exercise. There we go. That's the right word. So you have to have like that music that like pumps you up and, like does the whole like big energy thing. So I actually kind of do that. Like, I like to listen to an album that like has lyrics and it reminds me of the story, kind of like we were mentioning before, but I only do that like beforehand. So maybe, maybe I should have talked about this last time, but it's kind of a prep for me. Like if I really, really want to get back into a story, I can listen to an album like a month beforehand, or even like a couple of days before, or a couple of hours before, and it starts making me miss the story. Even though I don't have selected music that I actually go like, oh, this sounds like my character, this sounds like this sounds like that. I think for me, it kind of is a nostalgia thing with whatever was around the time when I was working on the story. So I know that a couple of years ago, I think when I was working on the first book for the series, it was Of Monsters and Men, because we just got to know the band. And I think there were a couple of songs that were really like popular at the time. And so I started listening to that. And then like now, whenever I hear that band, it becomes like, oh, I want to work on my story. But when I'm actually writing, I barely listen to music. There's a couple of movie soundtracks and game soundtracks that I listen to. A couple of animated movies too, but I think like the big ones for me have been How to Train Your Dragon, the Inception soundtrack, which I don't even remember why I have it. I think somebody gave it to me, but it's a good one. It's a really, really good one. And a couple of games. I actually love Bastion. Like the soundtrack to that is beautiful and it's very folksy. So it's been really, really good for my story since it's fantasy and it kind of like reminds me a little bit of the world. But otherwise, yeah, I actually kind of, like you mentioned, Anna, like I actually put on headphones and sometimes that can actually be enough. We have the noise blocking ones. And as you guys probably have noticed, we do get like sound coming from near here a lot. And because of COVID, the bars that we have around us are actually closed. So I don't know how it's going to be this year. It might be like one of the only good things about this whole thing. But it used to be years ago that the noise level was terrible and it used to drive me crazy. And I just like, I couldn't do it. And yeah, those headphones were life-saving. But yeah, so since we are talking about motivation, I think it's good for us to actually talk a little bit about writer's block as well. I'm going to start with a very, very simple question, which is, have you guys actually experienced writer's block? And you guys.
Oh, well, I just wanted to talk about this as well because in the first class I took in my current master's program, we talked about writer's block and how much of it is kind of self-created. And like, I totally think that burnout and writer's block are real, but also there's a lot that we can kind of put in our own head out of fear of writing. So we discussed that in my class, and that's when we were talking about the little things you can do. Like I mentioned on Sunday, putting a tapestry over your desk or doing something simple to change your environment and just kind of make yourself write. Because there's this idea that like if you get too in your head about writer's block, then it can become a bit of a, oh well, I have writer's block, so I can't write today. So I think that would be maybe an interesting topic. I would like to hear your thoughts on that.
Muted myself. Anna, if you want to go first.
Yeah, and I think it is, for me, I think the writer's block kind of comes with this idea, and I'm not necessarily a perfectionist. I don't have to get a thing perfect, but I don't want to get a thing wrong, if that makes sense. And so for me, if I'm feeling like if I've got several things piled up and it's like I just can't think myself out of this paper bag or whatever, I've like backed myself into a corner. I think that's when I tend to just throw my hands up and like I'm done. I'm gonna walk away. I can't. I don't have it in me. And so for me, it is getting out of that brain space. Yeah, because I do back myself into the corner, and that is where the going for that walk, or now that it's winter here, getting ready to go for that ski, or any of those things, doing yoga, something, where it's for me, the physicality of the thing gets me out of my head. It's like the one space that I have where it's like, I can't think, because if I think I'm going to die. And I don't like that because I hate running, but running is good for me. If that, and writing's the same way. Writing is good for me. My brain is better if I'm writing. If I'm stuck and I've got the writer's block and I can't think my way out, I'm usually not in a good space. So finding out, okay, what do I need to do to just stop, realize where I am and where that's coming from, and then slowly back myself out of that corner that I've gotten myself into. Being able to talk about it with other people is big too. Like I'm stuck. Here's where my characters are. Here's where my stories are. I don't know what to do. I can't make them fight anymore. They fought 4 times in the last 3 pages. So what do I do? And so having that sounding board is helpful.
Do you feel like you have troubles with writer's block the more you write and revise? Because I feel like it's almost harder now after going through revisions on manuscripts before. So now when I try to draft, I get so in my head about trying to fix things the first time through in order to try to avoid all of the rewriting later, which is probably not possible. But like I've been facing that with my current story I'm working on. Is I have this idea of what I want it to be, and it's probably not ever going to come out that way, at least not in the first draft. And so then I just get so in my head about it because, like you said, I don't want to write the wrong thing, so then I just don't write it at all. But I feel like part of that is from now having revised other stories. It's like, well, I'm trying to avoid this, but.
And I'm not one of those writers, I think a lot of writers, they're like, just get it down, get that first draft done, just brain dump everything. And that's not how my writing process tends to work. I can't, my brain wants to naturally solve puzzles, right? So it's always like, well, this piece isn't going to fit. So I have to go back to the beginning to make that piece fit, to make it make sense at this point right here. And so I don't tend to write linear. So if I'm writing the ending, like I'll wake up and it's like, oh my God, I know how this story is going to end. And I'll write that end scene. And it's like, but how do I get to that? I'm here. How do I get there? And that's a lot of times where I get myself stuck, is now I've got a front and an end. Now what happens to that saggy middle? I don't want to deal with the saggy middle. I just want to like jump to the end and be done, and it'd be pretty and lovely and awesome. And it's ugly. It's my ugly child right now. I just want it to like find its way into the closet and not, just like bury itself.
Sarah, do you actually write linear or do you skip around?
Wait, you cut out.
Oh, sorry. Do you write linear or do you skip around? I think she's cutting out.
I think she's frozen.
Oh no. Man, it's been a day.
It has been.
It's funny because I did the other stream and we had so many problems with that, but we couldn't tell which end it was on. And I don't think it was actually mine. I think it was like everybody else's. And I'm like, I think it's just having a day. It's doing its own thing.
The technologies are suffering today. The robots are not working well.
Yeah. I do like how we've been, like, this is our second year, but a little bit more like together. And there are things that we're still learning about each other. So the fact that like, I didn't know that you didn't write linear. Like, I don't know why, like, I always thought that, like, you wrote linear.
I try, like, I'll write so much linear, and then it'll be, if a scene pops into my head, I have no problem, like, jumping over to that and doing it, because I'd rather capture it in that moment than lose it and then try to recreate that thing. Because there's nothing, it's always that, like, I'll just write this down, and then we don't write it down. It's like, I'll remember it. I'm not going to write it down. It'll be fine. And you come back and you're like, what was it? I think Sarah talked about the grocery list on the phone, or Julie did, where it's like, why do I have lettuce and tomatoes written into this? This doesn't make any, like, what did I do? What did I do?
I always think I'm going to remember, but I don't. But I have a separate document where if I think of a scene that's later in the story, then I write that scene in a separate document. But otherwise I normally write linear, like from the beginning. But then when I get to that scene in the book, then I'll go and look at my first draft of the scene and then rewrite it into the book. So that's kind of my way of getting it out of my head so that I can focus on what I need to focus on, but also kind of keep the manuscript from start to finish, because at least it's in a separate spot. It's like 95% romance scenes, to be fair.
Which we mentioned last time, and we were just like, romance, keep going.
It's all that comes first in my head, so I write it down so I can focus on the actual plot.
Dude, whatever works, right? Actually, I think a couple of years ago, I used to write completely all over the place, but that gave me a problem where I only wrote the scenes that I wanted to write. And then, as Anna mentioned, the saggy middle, it just became a huge problem where I didn't know how to write middles, because I always knew the ending. And I guess the beginning is kind of hard too, because like the very first problem that I ever had with writing was the blank page. Like, you're sitting there, you're staring at it, and you're just like, all right, gotta put something down. What the hell is it gonna be? And it doesn't happen, right? But after a little while, and especially like I mentioned before, like it's NaNoWriMo, you have to keep going or you're going to fall behind and maybe you're never going to catch up. And that can be hard for people who actually do take it, serious. If you don't, that way, it's totally fine. Like, whatever you do is always enough. But the whole thing for me was that after a couple of years, I did have to learn how to write linear. Otherwise, I would skip everything. Now, I still do some skipping. I don't go crazy and go like, no, I must know every single word that comes like into place and fits and blah, blah, blah. Like, no, I will skip, or I will actually put like little notes and be like, figure out what this place looks like later, which is totally fine for me, just because you know, with art, sometimes I actually want to draw it out. It isn't so much about like, I don't know how to write this. It's because I actually haven't like mentally thought about it to the point where it's like, I know every detail of like this brick wall. So, you know, it's interesting. It's very different. But I will say that in the beginning, I think I did have a lot more writer's block. And for me personally, it really was because I was avoiding doing certain things. So it was very much situational. It was very much that thing where it's like, that's saggy middle. It's killing me. I don't want to do it. And then it starts, you know, like time passes, you know, the clock ticks, and you're like, oh, it's almost the end of Nano. I have to do this. And that's kind of how I got over it and started training. So yeah, I don't actually experience writer's block that much anymore. There was one year though, in NaNoWriMo, and please, let me just put it out there. Don't ever, ever do this, ever. But there was one year where I was actually avoiding things to the point where on the very last day, I had to write 12K in 12 hours. My eyes wanted to fall off and probably kill me.
Was this last year?
No, last year was worse.
No. I know. I was gonna say, wait a second. I have like this vague memory of you. Like, I have 1,800 projects, and I'm pretty sure my eyeballs are bleeding because I just wrote like 25,000 words in 2 hours or something.
How bad is it that I can actually say that my eyes have bled once? And 2 other times I almost did kill myself just trying to freaking win NaNoWriMo.
Don't do like Julie.
Don't be me. Don't be me. It's not worth it. No, I think it was maybe 2000. Oh, God, we're having so many.
No.
I think it was, let's see, 2018. I was writing a book that I really, really liked, but I hated the main character. Absolutely.
Oh, interesting.
And the whole idea was supposed to be that the main character was completely dislikable in the beginning. It was supposed to be something where he changed and he got better and he learned from his environment and the people around him. But because I hated him, I just didn't want to write it. So it became not only saggy middle, everything else, but it also became like, I don't want to write the story with this character. And that was a big problem because I loved everybody else. I loved everything else. I loved the plot. I loved everything else. But that character kind of killed it for me. And that was the one that I actually, welcome back, Sarah.
Sorry, I don't know why my internet is being bad tonight.
It's totally cool. Also, I do like how we're playing, what's it called?
Musical chairs.
Musical chairs. That's what we're doing. I actually like it like that now. You know what? We're going to keep switching and it's totally cool. But yeah, so I hated the character. And that was the one where I think I put it off until the middle of the month. But even when I did start writing, I wasn't into it that much. And so basically by the last day, that's when I had to write 12K in 12 hours. And it was the worst thing that I have done all Nano. What I did last year was a little bit different, but it was half as painful. Half, not that much, which was, I didn't want to, it was the first time that I was going to give up and I was going to say, I don't want to do Nano this year. And I didn't want to do it. I really, really didn't. What actually changed my mind was that one of my college professors passed away. And it was a big hit. It was a very, very big hit. It just became one of those things where I started feeling that the person that I looked up to, you know, in college, even after college, who was always creating, who was always trying to get us to create, to do things, you know, no longer has the opportunity to create, to do things. And so that meant that I had 10 days left and I wrote 50K in 10 days. And it was insane. And at some point I actually have to share the charts for these things because, yeah. So that was crazy. Do you guys have any crazy stories?
So I guess, what did you do? Because I think about like how much time that is in the seat and how much time that is in front of the computer. How did you shove everything else away to get that done?
I guess that's the only good part about freelancing with art, because I guess you can kind of separate your day. You can say that you're going to, and I've always been like a night person. So I think what I ended up doing was that like I would wake up and I would start doing whatever work I had to do. And I knew that nighttime was going to be, my writing time. And I've kind of proven to myself over the past couple of years how long it actually takes me to get a certain amount of words out. And so I guess it kind of became a test of saying like, I know how much I can do. Will I do it? And the first couple of days, it was hard, but you only have 10 days. So you can't even write on that. You can't even be like, maybe I shouldn't do it today. Maybe I should do it tomorrow. But then tomorrow you have to write like 10K. And I think I kind of like set my life aside. And I was like, yeah, I can do art later. Who knows? Who cares? And I don't even remember. I think like that year was a blurry haze. So, yeah.
Yeah, I can't imagine, because I mean, just last week I wrote 6,000 words in like 5 days or whatever, while also working. But I mean, that was.
Oh, no. Today's the day. Today's really the day. Also, I will mention this because I think it's a very, very important thing to mention. Freelancing with art is very hard, just normally. It's very, very hard. And it's hard for you to get, like clients and for you to get good jobs. So I will say that one of the things that actually helped me last year was the fact that my jobs were smaller. If I had, and I know that Sarah's currently frozen, but she's a Disney cast member and her job is being out there, being with the public, talking to people, being on the entire day. So if she's telling me that she couldn't do it, it's not because I'm better. It's not because I'm more experienced. It's not because any of those things. It's literally because our jobs are completely different. And what I can do to kind of set my time aside is completely different from what you guys could do, right? How do you feel about that, Anna? Like, do you feel like you could do it, or is your job too demanding? Because those things are super valid, right?
Yeah. It depends. I think it depends on what projects I'm carrying at work. But there are times when it's definitely like I freelance write. And so it's like, okay, if I'm dedicating this time, I have to make sure that I say no to projects. If I'm working, I work 8 to 5. I'll take my computer and write during a lunch break. I talked last time about how I'd use my morning commute to do the audio. So it's piecemealing it in throughout the day, and that way. Unfortunately, like writing at lunch is really hard because you have to, like, for me, I had to decompress from like, what is the job that I'm walking away from into the writing? Where am I in my writing? Wrap my head around that, write furiously for like 30 minutes, and then go right back to my job when I'm still in the writing space. So that can be pretty tough trying to separate those things. When I'm deep in it, though, I'll have to grab it. I have a ratty little notebook that I carry around. And sometimes in meetings, especially ones where I'm not the one leading the meeting or things like that, I'll carry this little notebook and just take notes on my story. And people think that I'm really engaged. So, wow, look at her. She's really paying attention. And I'm like, I'm not. I'm writing notes about this made up character that is more interesting than you and whatever you're talking about. So sometimes it's a little bit of therapy from work too. And then I'll come home at night and figure out like, okay, where can I fit in a bit more writing? Because I'm naturally a night owl. When I freelanced before and did gigging, it was like I would write all night and my schedule was really jacked up. I would go to bed at like 3 a.m. and wake up at 10 and then work for like ever and have 4 days off on a weekend or something. I don't have that luxury now. So it is just trying to figure out, well, where can I find time? And also acknowledging sometimes it just can't happen. It may be that I just open Scrivener and I just look at a page and that's enough for that day. But that's also as I've grown as a writer over the years, because when I was a new writer, it was like, oh, I didn't write my 10,000 words a day. I'm a failure. This is terrible. And realizing pretty quickly, like, what else somebody else can do is just not necessarily what I can do. It's taken a lot to find that space. And I think one of the most valuable things as a writer was when we did the writing conference, or when you can participate in something like that and really just carve out that time where it is like all that I'm doing is writing. I'm living and breathing and thinking about my story. That's why I was so excited for this summer trip that we were going to take, right? Because it was like, oh, we get to be in an awesome country and we're just going to write like as a group. And I was really excited, like, oh, nothing else matters. I'm just going to like spend hours writing with you guys and talking about our stories. We're going to live and breathe this. And then it didn't happen. And it's like, but now I'm trying not to live and breathe the germs. So yeah, now it's just figuring out like, okay, when can we find time when Katie's out of school to do a writing conference with the four of us, like over a weekend or something virtually.
We'll see what's going to happen. Also, Sarah, I think you cut out, and I kind of mentioned this. Basically, what you were saying as you cut out is that, like with your job and stuff, I actually mentioned to everybody else that the difference between your job and my job is humongous. And so like the way I can find time and the way that you can find time is so different that, it's not about if I'm better, if it's nothing like that. It's just like, man, you have to be on all day. I can't even like picture how it would be like for you to be like doing your job, talking to people, being on all the time, and then coming home and being like, now I'm going to write 10K, because it seems impossible and I shouldn't be doing it, but I did because I'm weird. But, it's one of those like big things to talk about, like, no, please don't do that.
Yeah, and I mean, I wasn't trying to frame it as better or not better. And I think it also goes, there is a sense of quality over quantity sometimes, like just because you've written 10,000 words, what are those 10,000 words, but also like what effect did that have on you mentally? But yeah, my job can be hard because it's, like you said, talking to people very energetically all day, especially as an introvert. And then also I work a standing job, so I'm on my feet all day. And until recently, I used to work outside all day in Florida heat. So it can be pretty tiring, which is why specifically last week, I would get in the headspace and I'd be like on a roll writing in the morning, but then my 1 hour I'd maybe scratched out ended and I had to go to work, and then I'd get home at night and just stare at the screen for 3 hours and write like 100 words maybe. So it was very frustrating because you get home and you're exhausted, and how do you then come up with a world and write it down in a coherent way? So yeah, it's tough, which is why when I was home during quarantine, I wrote way more than I do right now. But I'm trying to get back into waking up early and working in the morning, because I think that's the best way to make it work with my job.
And are you actually a morning person? Because like, I'm not a morning person. I've tried so many times. And I think the only time I actually did okay writing in the morning was, and I swear, no drugs, no drinking, nothing like that. But there was one year where I was going on, like, I think I was so happy. It was like one of the only times in my life where it was like, oh, I think I'm really freaking happy. And so I was in this like constant high during the day where I was just so happy and I just wanted to get stuff done. And it was the first time that like I would wake up a little bit earlier and kind of just start working. But that was another crazy month, because I think I wrote, oh my God, I got to actually look it up again. But I think most people would do like an hour writing a day. And I think by the end of the month, I wrote like 64 100 and something hours. It was just kind of crazy because again, like I had a job and stuff and it's like, what are you doing? So yeah, I'm kind of crazy like that. But yeah, I'm sorry. I keep getting off topic because like,
Am I a morning person?
crazy top. I mean, like I've had some really crazy nano years, but yes, please, like, are you a morning person? Like, how do you feel with stuff like
I'm
that?
a weird mix. I definitely don't. I mean, I don't want to wake up at 5, 6 a.m. I think that's horrid. But 7 is probably the earliest that I comfortably am good at waking up. But I don't like sleeping in, but I also like staying up late. So I think I just wish I could function on like 4 hours of sleep because it's hard for me to go to bed any earlier than midnight. And I used to stay up later than that. I mean, I know for a lot of people that's not very late. But I also hate sleeping past 8 or 9 a.m. So for me as a writer, I work really well. I said this on Sunday in the morning and then late at night. And again, I think it's because of there's less distractions from other people. I mean, obviously I seek out other people when I want a writing companion, but otherwise if I'm getting texts and things that aren't related to writing, then it's just constantly drawing me out of the headspace. So
There's something to be said for writing when the rest of the world is sleeping, whether it's early in the morning or it's late at night. It's like it's just me and my head and my words. And it's kind of magical with those hours, I think.
I also think it's energizing in the morning too. I mean, if it goes well, I suppose. If it doesn't go well, then maybe not. But I mean, this morning I got up and gave myself enough time to work on homework, which isn't as fun, but still I felt very awake and I had experienced already a good chunk of my day before going to work, which made me feel better than the days that I get up and just kind of rush to get ready. So good mental space.
Yeah, wow. Also, we are gonna have a short stream today just because it's been a long day. And plus we are having like a couple of difficulties with internet and a couple of other things. But I think it's kind of nice also to like talk, especially during the week, like talk a little bit less because it's so many different topics. It's so much that we're actually covering. And it's also nice to hear from you guys and see like what you guys think, what you want us to talk about. And it's good for us to think a little bit. But this week, we are actually going to not have the stream on Thursday. And then we are going to have the drink and draw on Saturday. And that's going to be pretty crazy. And then on Sunday, which is the very first day of NaNoWriMo, we are going to have another session. And it's going to be a little bit different. We're actually going to try to do a thing where if you guys want to write with us, we can do that. And also, if you guys have any ideas, if you like want to hear us talk about something, we are always open to it. And hi, Janine. Yes, this Saturday is the drink and draw because we're doing a Halloween special. And I might even dress up, but I don't know how that's going to happen because we don't have Halloween here in Brazil. But I'll try to make it happen. But yeah, so it's going to be a very busy weekend. But I mean, I don't know about you guys, but I'm definitely looking forward to NaNoWriMo this year. Like, I want to start and I want to try to have like a strong start. How are you guys feeling? Because it's right around the corner.
I can't believe that's Sunday at all. I keep remembering that. And I'm like, I thought that was 3 weeks away. So I guess I'm not ready. I don't even know what I'm doing necessarily. But I'm also excited.
Same. I mean, what is time anymore? I don't know. I don't know when we are.
Yeah, I wanted to do like a little special this year to be like, oh, my 10th NaNoWriMo. And then the more I thought about it, the more I was like, you know what? I think that experience would be better talked about and shared after the fact. Because this year is going to be weird. It's going to be special. It's going to be unique. It's going to be, I mean, like I talk to my dad about this like sometimes, and I know that COVID isn't special. I know that a couple of years ago, not too recent, but there was another pandemic of sorts. I forget which one it was, but like people have kind of recently gone through something like this, but not to this scale. So this is history going down, right? And so like whatever goes down during this NaNoWriMo, during this session, during this, like unique month of November, it's the first time. So I don't know. I'm looking forward to it, but also I'm like, what the heck is going to happen? If there's any year that I could say this, actually past the other 2 years, like I think that, who knows, like maybe I could actually give up this year because I'm already so tired from so much. And I know that you guys are too. We talk about self-care a lot in our own chats. And maybe that's a good topic for us to actually touch up on next time as well. But yeah, this year is going to be unique. And if you guys want to be there with us on Sunday, we would love to have you. But I think we are going to close here, unless there's any questions from the chat. And also, is there anything that you guys want to talk about, Sarah, Anna, before we go?
Well, I think my goal for this November is to just try to have fun with it. And I mean, there's always going to be the pressure to actually write the 50,000 words, but going into it with more of a focus on our write-ins and working with the Slack group, I think is going to be better in the long run. And just trying to like put myself in the chair and write some this month, despite everything going on. So that'd be my advice to everyone. Just have fun.
I like it. I think that's what I'm aiming for. I'm just picking up another manuscript. I'm not starting a new project. I don't have capacity. I need to just kind of focus and get this saggy metal figured out. So I think that's my goal for Nano this year. It's next couple of days, like pulling out those Post-its, getting them up on the wall, starting that to get into that mental space of like, okay, I'm going to write, I'm going to have, button seat, computer open, get a few words down, try to sort this thing out.
Yeah, absolutely. I have no idea what mine is going to be like, but it's like, well, wait and see. Also, Sarah dropped out. It's been a day. It's been wonderful. Actually, she will be here to say a quick bye. I gotta say, like, I know that we had so many problems today, but this has actually been fun.
I'm so sorry.
Dude, it's totally okay. I don't know. It's kind of fun because I always do this by myself. And the energy that you have by yourself and the energy you have with other people, like, even if it's going wrong, at least you can laugh about it and you don't have to take yourself so seriously. And that part, I'm actually really thankful for. So I'm going to thank you guys for being here again. And I will see you guys on Sunday. And I will see everybody else watching hopefully on Saturday for the drink and draw, but also on Sunday. So have a wonderful night, everybody. And thanks so much for being here. Bye, guys.